Good morning. Welcome to Village in Motion. Today is Monday, July 16th, 2018. And this morning I welcome two baseball fans, Janelle Cesari and Peggy Kellers, and we're here to talk about the All-Star Game. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good
How
morning.
are you?
Look at you smiling.
Oh yeah, it's fun. It's a fun time of year.
Janelle loves baseball, and
Yep.
so does Peggy, although Peggy is more of a softball fan. Right. Janelle, tell us about what's going on with baseball.
Well, it's a really exciting time to be here in DC
Because
there are so many activities going on surrounding the All-Star Game, which we are lucky enough to host this year.
How long has it been since we've hosted it?
Well, I looked that up because I wasn't sure because, you know, I'm not a DC area native. And we've hosted it actually several times. The last time we hosted it was the year I was born. Oh, I shouldn't have said that. Now I have to tell you. It was in 1969, and it was at RFK. And prior to that, DC hosted it in 1962, and then in 1956 and 1937. And I didn't even realize, and I'm sure many residents here will remember this stadium, but we initially, in the very start, we hosted it at the Griffith Stadium. Griffith Stadium here in DC is where the baseball players played before RFK and before the Nats Park. And I believe that was our stadium here from 19...
Do we know where it was?
Yes.
Oh, and where was it?
It was where the current Howard University Hospital stands.
Isn't that interesting?
Yes. And in fact, I saw a clip where in the Howard University Hospital, they actually have like a home plate area on the ground. So they memorialized it. So you can go there and see this was where the old Griffith Stadium home plate was. I'm sure the residents here remember Griffith Stadium. I believe it was demolished in 1965.
I'm sure we have some folks that have been there.
Yes.
So this year, for the first time in 49 years, it's our turn to host the All-Star Game.
Yes. And there's a lot going on. Peggy, do you want to elaborate on, in addition to the game, there's other stuff going on?
So you know the fan fests have become popular in the 80s and 90s.
And what happens with the fan fest?
Well, there's a lot of things, and it depends on the sport. So not only do they have merchandise being sold, because I saw people on the metro with merchandise when I was coming home on Saturday, but they have the Home Run Derby, which was initially done in 1985.
What is the Home Run Derby?
The Home Run Derby is tonight, and it's a contest between 8 players who are known for their home runs. And they compete. They choose who they want to pitch to them, and obviously the pitching is not like a big league. It's like batting practice pitching, and so it relies a lot on their own strength to get the ball out of the park, and they're timed. And then the one with the most home runs advances in a single elimination until they determine who the Home Run Derby champion is.
Well, that's pretty exciting.
Yes, so that's tonight.
There was some element of the Home Run Derby that had to do with people who were not professional baseball players. I saw some part about that had some military people involved. And
okay, that's new to me. I know there's some military involvement in some of the other festivities.
Okay, I shouldn't have mentioned it because I didn't think carefully enough about it.
Well, you know, everybody loves the home run guys. And if you remember last year, the Yankees' Aaron Judge, who's a young guy, he just booted it like over 500 feet. And I was kind of just for fun looking up records because they don't just measure how far it goes, they also measure velocity. And Reggie Jackson, apparently in 1971, rumor has it, I don't know if it's been verified, but it's been quoted that he hit a 532-foot home run, which is pretty amazing. Yeah. But that's the exciting strength test, you know. And we do have a national representing us in the Home Run Derby.
And who is that?
That would be That would be Bryce Harper.
Bryce Harper, that's good.
And he's ranked number 2 in the Derby.
Oh, good.
So he's competing first against number 8. So then other Fun Fest activities. Yesterday was a big day. ESPN covered the Futures game live, which is the top minor league players that compete at Nat Stadium. And then following that,
they had a whole separate game.
Yes, and that was covered live at ESPN. And then the second part of that game last night was what they call the Legacy Celebrity Game. And so that's with former Major League Baseball players, 2 top-level softball players, and many celebrities, actors, that type of thing. And they just go out and have a good time. And that game, even though it was broadcast, it wasn't broadcast live, that'll be shown tonight at 10 o'clock after the Home Run Derby.
Oh, that would be, so that will be shown on TV tonight?
Yes, on ESPN.
Oh, that'd be fun to watch.
Yeah, so the two women in softball that are the big guns are Jenny Finch and Jessica Mendoza, and those were both gold medalists for
Wow.
USA softball, and they're still involved. You may know Jessica Mendoza. She's the first woman to be a broadcaster. She broadcasts Sunday Night Baseball on ESPN, and then Jenny Finch, after she retired from her professional career, has been very active in promoting softball and baseball among children.
Wonderful. So they will be a part of this game, this
Yes,
legacy game.
yes.
Wow. I had never heard of those games before at all.
Well, and they're fairly new, and one of the things that happened, and again, it's across all sports, when there's an all-star game, then they try to make the week a
So
big
these are
deal.
like all-star games within the all-star
Yes,
games.
and sometimes there's activities for children. I'm sure down by Nats Park,
Yeah,
there's all kinds of
actually-
activities.
Actually, sorry to interrupt you, Peggy. My husband and I were biking through Old Town, and there were all these people with teenage kids and preteens, and they all had All-Star gear on. And so basically, since Friday, there's been this fan fest,
Yes.
as you mentioned, going on at the convention center. And it's a lot of free activities, and a lot of it is like interactive activities for kids. I know they have like simulated batting cages, and you know, there's all kinds of fun stuff. So I've seen a lot of tourists in town for
Lots
this.
of things to do.
Yeah, and you can see Mayor Mariel Bowser has really been promoting this as a great way for the city to increase its
It's been
tourism.
good for the city.
It's been very good for the city, and you know, it's good, I think, you know, to have the Nationals here and to have Nationals fans be able to watch all of this, because we've been waiting for this for a while.
Sure.
Yeah, and now we have Tampa Bay. They're the only team that hasn't hosted an all-star game, but most of the time they
Tampa
try.
Bay team is pretty new, isn't it?
Fairly new. And what they do in choosing the city, not only for, you know, the types of activities and the size of the city and that kind of thing, but many times it's the newest stadium or something like that. It usually has nothing to do with what your record has been or whether you had won the World Series recently. And then next year, Cleveland Indians have been tapped to host.
And the Cleveland team, I believe, has hosted it many, many, many times. Yes.
Because they're one of the original American League teams.
Ah, is that the
Yes.
reason?
So, and this year, the Nationals, because they're hosting it, in the National League team, they'll be the home team.
Oh, okay.
American League will be the visiting team. And most of the time that occurs, with the exception of 2 years ago, San Diego Padres hosted, but because the National League was going to sponsor the next 2 All-Star games, they let the American League be the home team in that game. And then last year it was in Miami, so the National League was home, and this year National League will be home, and then next year it'll go to the American League.
It's
being
all
home.
very confusing. There are so many, as I tried to read a little bit about it, the more I read about it, the more confused I got.
Well, you know, baseball is a game of statistics
Yes.
and history, and you know, you can't watch baseball without just, you know, knowing. It's just so much statistics. It's fun, but there's a lot of that. And you know, I just wanted to segue because you mentioned DC hosting it, and I did want to make sure we talked a little bit about which Nationals were selected.
Yes.
Home team. So as I said, we have Bryce Harper. Not only is he in the Home Run Derby, but he's also been selected to play right field, I believe. I think it's right field, because lately he's been playing some center field, but right field. And you know, there's a little bit of controversy surrounding our Bryce this year. This is his 5th appearance. He started when he was 19. This is his 5th All-Star appearance. He is a fan favorite, and as many people know, he has 23 home runs. But he also has a pretty low batting average this year. So I am going to have faith that he's going to lift that batting average. I'm glad that we have him in to represent the team and in the Home Run Derby and in the game. Now, really no controversy about this guy, Max Scherzer.
Okay.
Max Scherzer is going to be a starting pitcher for the National League. What can you say about Max?
Wow.
The man is amazing. He's a 12-5 record, But that record in a lot of those games were, if he had some losses, he just wasn't getting run support. He's had a phenomenal year. He has a 2.41 ERA, and he has 182 strikeouts. I think he's still leading the league in strikeouts. Well-deserved max. And then a new one this year is our closer, Sean Doolittle. And this is my Sean Doolittle bobblehead. I actually went to the game to get this one.
Did you really?
Sean Doolittle is our closer, and when you go to the games, you'll hear "doo," and you think they're saying "boo," but it's
really
"doo." And they call him Dr. Doolittle, and the doctor, and he's been phenomenal. I mean, he's had, I think, 22 saves. He has like a 1.45 ERA, well-deserved, and
so of all the
good
players
representation.
in the All-Star game, the Nationals have 3 players.
3 players.
Out
yeah.
of how many total players in the game?
34.
34 players. How are the players chosen for the game?
All right.
Go
At
ahead,
the
Peggy.
beginning of May
Go for it.
till
Peggy.
almost the end of June, fans all over the country get to vote. And this year it was online voting.
Okay.
You didn't have to go to the game and buy a ticket in order to vote. And so the fans determine the top infield positions by votes gotten, the 3 top outfielders by votes gotten, and the catcher.
Okay, so they determine what positions would those be?
It would be first base, second base, third base, shortstop, left field, right field, center field, catcher.
Okay.
All right, and then after that list comes out in the end of June, the managers then get to choose or get to vote on other players. Now, I'm old school, all right, so I'm not a fan of.
So let's back up. The fans choose those. Can the fans only vote once?
I can answer that. I have to confess that I like Anthony Rendon, and
many
every
times?
year he gets. Sorry, I can't. I get
How
upset.
many times did you vote for Anthony Rendon, Janelle?
Well, let's just say I hit the button several times. But
Several
you're allowed to
times.
vote.
Yeah.
I can't even remember what the max is, but I did it.
You go for that voting early and often. Is that it?
He deserves it, and every year he doesn't get it, so I had to do what I could.
And
but
was he selected this year?
no, he was not, and I'm very upset about it. But I have to move on. So
Okay.
So anyway, the
moving
managers then get to also vote, and that gets kind of interwoven with what the fans have chosen as far as popularity. And then the last position is held, position number 34 is held for the final fan vote, which happens the first week in July. All right, now I'm not.
The managers have vote for the pitchers.
Well, they vote for every position.
Oh.
But they also get to select the starting pitcher. Tomorrow night's manager, Houston and the Dodgers get to select the starting pitcher, and that's based on, first of all, if the starting pitcher is able to play, not injured, if he hasn't pitched yesterday because he needs the 4 days rest, and if he's decided to come to the game, which some players have the option of not coming.
Well, I was going to ask that question. If I were a player, what is the advantage for me to play in this game, or would I just not like to have a few days off?
it goes on your resume. You get a captive national audience watching you. I mean, it is fun. They have galas and all kinds of events. You know, some players, like, you know, I think maybe Anthony Rendon is just having a little R&R right now, taking a breather. Maybe he's going home to Houston. But I think most players find it really exciting and like to do it. And like I said, if you look up, I actually have printed out a roster here of the most seasons on the All-Stars. So if you look at these names that were All-Stars, big time names, and it may come as no surprise, the player who actually appeared in the most All-Star games, Hank Aaron. Remember Hank Aaron? He played in 25 games.
Wow.
He had a very long career. Second to that, Willie Mays. Third, Stan Musial. And of course, everybody knows this name. The fourth person with the most appearances of 19 is our Orioles' own Cal Ripken.
Of course, the more you play, the more your name is out there, the more likely you are to get selected another time.
And it's a big honor.
It is a big
to
honor.
be selected. So it's very unusual if a player declines the invitation.
It's funny, I'm looking at this list, and one of the people on the list who appeared 17 times is Pete Rose.
Yeah.
And you were
Our
talking
Cincinnati
about
guy.
Yeah, Pete Rose. I remember him. He also, I believe, he played for the Phillies a little bit too.
A little bit.
I remember watching him when I was young. And if you go on and you look at memorable moments from All-Star Games, and I don't know if we mentioned this or not, but the All-Star Games started in 1933. So this is what? How many years now? I can't
Well,
do
it's
the math.
been number 80. This is number 89.
This is 89.
89. Yeah.
And we're, believe it or not, we're 43 and 43 and 2 ties.
Really?
Yeah, but
That's interesting.
usually the winning streak goes in streaks. And so anyway, it's interesting that we're tied.
Well, Pete Rose is often shown in a memorable moment. In 1970, you can look it up on the internet. There's a famous time in the All-Star Game where Pete Rose, I think the game was into 12 innings, and he's running home, and he just plows into the catcher and just nails him. And I guess they won, but that is an unfortunate, memorable moment. But like, I don't think you could do that now because they've changed the rules and how you can hit. You can't hit into the catcher like that. But that is, unfortunately, that's one of the memories that they often show when you look up memorable moments. But there have been so many great players, so many memorable moments, all the way back. Babe Ruth. This is how far back this goes.
Sure.
It goes back to Babe Ruth.
And the only times that they haven't had an All-Star Game was in 1945 during the war, and then in the late 70s when baseball had a strike. Other than that, they've had it every year. It's usually the second or third week. It's always on a Tuesday, but always the second or third week in July.
Why a Tuesday, I wonder?
Probably because they've just finished the weekend with baseball, and then they'll start up again next weekend. So they don't want to lose the revenue of a weekend game, right? And then that's kind of midweek.
And the All-Star part of the year is kind of the halfway point. And it has you give pause and you reflect on the first half of the season. Of course, I have to mention the Nationals again. It's been a little bit of a challenge this year for our Nationals. I believe they're now at 500. 48. I think they're at 500. So I'm hoping that this little pause and this hosting this will re-energize the team, and we'll get back on track and get ourselves into contention, because right now we're, I think, third ranked.
Does that seem to be good for teams to give them a little pause to kind of regroup?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I never played softball or baseball or anything, but if you think about how grueling that season is, and we have really been hit with a lot of injuries this year. I think we have the most injuries out of any team. So I'm using that as an excuse as to why we don't have the winning record we had last year. But Peggy, I'm sure some people know this, but some people may not. Peggy played softball
and coached softball.
And coached softball. And Peggy, how many games are in a season? 100 in baseball season. 100?
In baseball, there's over 100.
Over 100.
In softball, there's usually about 75.
Right. And how did you feel at game 72? Were you feeling a little tired?
Well, that was when we were in the Nationals, so we were pumped to win.
Yeah.
But yes, especially as a catcher. You were tired. You're not only physically tired, but you're mentally tired, and so you need a break.
Yeah, I mean, it takes a toll. You look at these guys, 25 years old, having 2 or 3 Tommy John surgeries for pitching, and I mean, it really takes a toll on your body. And unfortunately, the Nationals have been really hit hard by this.
Right.
Which the Nationals in the past have had a lot of players as All-Stars, and I'll name a few. Now this year it's just the 3 we mentioned, Harper, Doolittle, and Scherzer. We've also had Daniel Murphy has been an All-Star, and when Wilson Ramos was a catcher, he was an All-Star. Steven Strasburg, Ian Desmond, Ryan Zimmerman, of course, who's the only player on the Nationals who's original to the team when they started in 2005. He's still on the team, and he's the only player that's been on the team the whole run. And even Gio Gonzalez was an All-Star. So
interesting.
We've had some representation, yes.
So I wanted to make sure that people knew the rules and maybe some of the changes that have occurred, not necessarily this year, but in the recent years. All right, they experimented from 2002 to 2016 to give a little incentive to the All-Star Game itself and the outcome. So what they did was the winning team during that span had the home field advantage during the World Series. And so if the Nationals, for example, won that All-Star Game, then the National League team that won the pennant had the home field advantage, which meant they played the first game at home, and if it went to 7 games, they played the 7th game at home. Now that's changed in the last 2 years. Now the home field advantage is determined by the pennant winner and the record. So either the National League or the American League, whichever team won the pennant and has the best record, they have home field advantage.
That's where it becomes all too confusing. It's just way too many rules.
Well, what was interesting during that phase when the All-Star Game the outcome meant something was there was a lot more motivation to win, but the disadvantage was managers didn't always play everyone. And that probably should be a given, that if you made the All-Star team, you should at least be able to make an appearance.
Right.
So that's what they're getting back to now. A couple other rules that changed recently, now both leagues have a designated hitter. So there is a designated hitter for the National League as well as the American League, even though during the regular season the National League doesn't have a designated hitter.
Yeah, and if you're new to baseball, that's something you don't realize, you know.
I'm saying, I have no idea what you're talking about. Can you explain that?
You want to explain? Go ahead.
Sure. Designated hitter is one of the people in the lineup who is taking another fielder's position, maybe because that fielder isn't as good a hitter. And so all that designated hitter does during a game is hit. It's very unusual if they go into field.
So you've got somebody who's a fielder who maybe can catch the ball in the field, but he's not so good at hitting.
Yes.
So when it's his turn to hit, this other designated hitter comes up and hits for him.
Now, but in a regular season game in the Nationals League, they don't have that. What they have is a pinch hitter. So, you know, the starting pitcher pitches, and let's say Max Scherzer's starting to get burned out and he's hit 100 pitches in the 7th inning. They'll take him out and then they'll put like a pinch hitter in for him. But then he's not allowed to go back in. But in the American League, they have a designated hitter where you can do that throughout the game. In the National League, you usually only see that happen when they pull the pitcher out and then somebody comes in to hit for him. Does that make sense?
Not exactly, but I think I'll stick to football, thank you.
Actually, and I know Peggy will agree with me, is the more you understand baseball, the more interesting it is. When I was younger, I didn't understand the rules and all the statistics. And to me, it was just a bunch of guys spinning on the field, and it was long and laborious, and I'd rather watch football. Then, and when I got a little older, I started watching it, and I started understanding
the game. That's my problem. I'm not old enough to understand it yet. Here it is.
When you understand the game and you really pay attention, you realize it's very much a mental game, and there's a lot going on. And these guys that got picked for the All-Stars, you know, they're at the top of their game. So it's really exciting.
So I'm not old enough or smart enough. The whole thing is becoming clear now.
You just have to take an interest in it. You just have, like anything else.
I'll work on that.
All right, a couple other rules.
Yes, tell us some more.
So first of all, the roster size changed from 33 to 34 in 2010.
And why did it change?
Probably to involve more players and get more exposure.
That's good.
A manager before tomorrow night's game designates a player, any player, who will be the re-entry player. So let's say
who decides who the manager is for these teams?
Okay, the previous year's World Series participant. So the Houston Astros for the American League and the Los Angeles Dodgers for the National League.
Okay.
All right, and so this player is designated as the one re-entry player. So again, because every manager is trying to use every player, what happens if all the players on the roster are now in the game and there's an injury or an ejection? Not that that ever happens in baseball. And so there is one player designated who will be the person that comes in to fill that spot, that player's spot. And many times that player is playing out of position, all right? And then the only specialization is the catcher, naturally. So if a catcher is injured or ejected, and there are no other catchers that are able to, maybe they're in other positions at this point, or they've already entered the game, there's a catcher that can re-enter. All right?
What position did you play?
Catcher.
You were catcher?
Wow.
Did you get beat up a lot?
A lot.
Oh, I always cringe when I think, the catcher he gets beat up the most, or she gets beat up the most.
And then the other piece that may be interesting and may not be known is during the year, each team has a fine system. That's a monetary penalty for not doing something. So during the All-Star Game, and usually during the pennant race, the fine system is suspended so that the players can just focus on enjoying the game. So for example, if there's a runner on second base, which is considered a runner in scoring position with less than 2 outs, and I'm up to bat,
Okay.
and I don't advance that runner, I would be fined. If I were given a sacrifice bunt, there's a runner on first base, my job is to bunt the ball so that the runner on first base gets successfully to second base. If I fail to do that, either I pop up or the runner gets thrown out at second, I'm fined for failure to advance
Really?
the runner. Yes,
That's a
so
little cruel.
there are many.
Yeah, but
Yeah,
they
but-
make a lot of money, so.
So there are many fines that are going on, and it's really for motivation during the game and to keep people sharp. But those are suspended during the All-Star
I didn't know
Game.
that all that went on.
I have so much trivia, it's ridiculous.
We just need to go out one night, go have a beer, and just talk baseball. And I have to say this, that I am so proud to sit here with 2 women, and it's a 3-woman panel here discussing baseball.
Discussing baseball.
And, you know, equal rights and all that stuff.
There
But,
you go.
You know, actually, there are a lot of female baseball fans.
Oh, there are.
You look around in the
Agreed.
stands at Nats Park, you know, it's definitely a unisex sport, and
That's
everybody
right.
loves baseball.
That's right. I think we have a piece of famous trivia here on the table. Is this your catcher's mitt?
Yes, but this is what softball catchers use. They use a baseball first baseman's mitt.
Yeah, you were telling us
because
that before. That's interesting.
The size of the softball is so much larger. If you were to use just a regular catcher's mitt, it's not a good size for the size of the ball you're handling. So in
they're-
baseball,
they're not
the first baseman would use this mitt.
So they're not specially made mitts for softball.
No.
Well, that's kind of cruel. I think you should have your own mitts made. We have about a minute left, ladies.
Oh.
Tell us what final words of wisdom we have about the All-Star Game.
All right, who's going to win?
The game is when?
The game is tomorrow.
Tomorrow?
Tonight is the Home Run Derby on ESPN at 8 p.m.
Okay.
And then tomorrow at 8 p.m. is the actual game, American League versus National League. I think it's on Fox. Don't quote me on that.
And what happens if it rains?
That's a good question.
Well, they play unless there's lightning or the field becomes unplayable.
Okay.
yeah. Think
So
positive. It's not
who's going to win, and what's the score?
Well, you know, I have to, you know, my Scherzer and everything. I'm going to say National League is going to win, but it's going to be close. It's like 7-6.
what's your
Okay, and
prediction?
I'll go, just to be ornery, I'll go American League 3-2.
We'll see.
Okay.
Time will tell. Thank you for joining us, and thank you for teaching me so much about baseball.
You're welcome.
I know a whole lot more than I did, but I won't say this much more than I did before. And we'll look forward to enjoying the game.